Welcome everybody. This is the Windows 10 project closure meeting. Windows 10 for the Department of Social Services was a very large project over 3 years to upgrade or refresh more than 5,000 computers across the entire DPS, Department of Social Services county system. That's across 3 separate networks. We had an ambitious goal here. Not only were we upgrading the standing systems, but we were also, in one case with the CWS CMS network, we were swapping them off of that network onto the Department of Social Services network. Add to that, as a cherry on the top, we did perform a refresh of over 500 laptops that were officially out of scope. But we were able to get those into the project as well. So let's jump into it. I have people here at the meeting in the room. We have people online, so forgive me if I'm jumping back and forth. I'm going to switch now to the main screen. First thing we're going to do, everybody, as we do with all project management meetings, we begin with, what do we begin with, Juan?
The story.
The story, that's right. Every project that uses the Q2PM methodology tells a story, all right? So as you all have heard me do for the last 3 years, every meeting that we have begins with a recitation of where we are, where we stand, and where we're headed. So where are we? Because everybody has, especially a lot of people, supervisors and managers, go from one meeting to another after all day. So a good project manager will remind everybody, what meeting is this? And what are we about to do? This is the Windows 10 DPSS's final meeting, hopefully. If we've done our job right, then this is the last meeting. And this project, as I mentioned before, was an upgrade project. This is our timeline for the project. This is only the 3rd phase of the project. I'll be talking about the other phases in just a minute. But before we jump into the PowerPoint, I want to show you our meeting roster. You've all seen this before. This is what has driven all of our past meetings, right? We've lived in this, especially the field services team, right? Twice a week for the last 3 years, we would gather in a room and live on this. As witnessed by all of these, it just goes on and on and on. And this was just the 3rd phase. So there's 2 other notebooks like this. So every meeting begins with a checking off the check boxes to see if everybody was here. So we've got all the names. As you were coming in, I marked off your name. Everybody knows what the log is for. Any action items that come up, or decisions, or changes, or risks that we identify during the course of the meeting will be recorded here. They will be assigned to somebody, and a delivery date will be recorded as well. Hopefully nothing comes up, but if it does, I'll record it there, and we have some more work to do. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Everybody knows what the colors mean, right? What does yellow mean? This is kind of a quiz for those who have been with me all this time. What does it mean if something is in yellow?
Right, that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, that's something we need to discuss. And I don't know why I have a checkbox there. It shouldn't have a check marks in it. Right. That's your agenda, right? The story is everything that we've done along the way. Hey, all right, some latecomers. Hi, guys. Have a seat, grab a donut. We're just jumping into it. And thank you, Juan, for giving out the sheets. And any good project managers, of course, sure to take a pause for a second to record the fact that we have 2 people. Very important people indeed. Brandon and George were...
Alex Serrano and take off Iggy. You can use...
I sure did.
I didn't want to point it out.
After all this time. Oh, wow.
Your mouth.
Thank you, Alex.
Back donut.
Thank you. Yeah, back donut.
Take the box.
How about it? Thank you for keeping it on. And that illustrates a really good point. One of the reasons that we do this on the screen is for exactly that reason. It's one thing if I have it on my computer here and I'm checking people off and I'm making mistakes all over the place, right? And then no one, but you guys keep me honest, as you just did right there. That's particularly useful when we're recording action items and I'm recording what the actual work needs to be. And like a subject matter expert like Jason, for example, if I'm recording some technical bit, you're going to rebuild the image to the 1473 specifications. What do I know, right? You'll keep me honest, right? So thank you, Chris, for keeping me honest. And I apologize. That box is yours. All right. So the important thing is we know about the colors. Everybody's seen, but yellow means that's something we're going to talk about. So the way that we always run these meetings is we scroll through the list, right? We've done this 2 times a week for years now, and we look for anything that's yellow, but not just anything that's yellow. Anything that's yellow and has an empty check mark next to it, right? There could be yellow things on the list, but if it doesn't have a check mark next to it, can you hazard a guess at what that means?
That means it won't come up in this meeting.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about it here. Maybe this is a meeting, for example, where we're talking about field services stuff, and there's a yellow item that has to do with the sysadmin work. We don't need to talk about that at that meeting. So I'm going to before the meeting, I will remove the checkbox. And I've had people in my meetings, they go through and they look, they know ahead of time, oh, it's got to be, we missed the checkbox, Kurt, right? But they know the yellow without a checkbox is good. Okay, more color quiz. What does a gray item mean? Done, right. That means that piece of work is done, right? And does anybody, I'll lift this little blue bit up here. Does anyone remember what the blue, usually when it goes gray, I take the blue bits off. What does the blue bit mean? Is that big enough to see, by the way?
Yep, perfect.
Not perfect? Oh, it's perfect size? Oh, can you see in the back okay, Brandon?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody remember what the blue bit is?
The blue bin, like the teal there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
teal, sorry.
Is that when, something that you need to go back to?
It's a cheat. It's a cheat, right? So this item here, okay, it's a decision. What to do with the link cards? It's assigned to RCIT, and it was added to the post-project task list, right? That's the way, because remember, to get more information, I could click on this item right here, this what to do with the link card, and what does it do when I click on it? It goes into SharePoint, finds the item in the log, pulls it open, here's all the gory details about it, and then way down here at the bottom under the notes, it's going to say, the RCIT team discussed this issue and agreed that link cart Win10 systems, this thing right here, which is all over DPSS, are out of scope because the image is different. It's not different. These systems will get Win10 when the hardware is refreshed. Put a pin in that. We're going to see that in just a minute, okay? So what that did is that little teal bit, that saved me from wasting your time. I don't have to click on the item to find out what the last status was. It says right there. So as you're telling me your statuses, I'll record it in the log and then I'll add a little bit there, okay? Now we shouldn't see any more yellow or we shouldn't see any more teal for a little bit. Okay, here we are, we're about to tell the story. Now, my daughter's 19, I don't get to tell stories anymore, so bear with me, I'm a little rusty, okay? We're gonna tell the story of Windows 10 DPSS, right? The story began with the pre-project evaluation phase, where we develop a business case and then a project proposal. Look at all of the tasks and decisions, all the decisions that we made in the early phases of the project to help us determine what we were going to do. All of those decisions are recorded here. All of the dates and timestamps are there. If we ever have to do this again, we have a good roadmap about how to do it again because it's all laid out. And we have a task. Tasks are items that we actually figured out up front, we knew we'd need to do. Action item. What's the difference between a task? You guys didn't know this was a quiz, did you? What's the difference between a task and an action item? Does anyone remember?
Is the action item assigned?
You're almost there. Yeah, that's it. Juan, do you remember what the difference is?
Got me.
Got me. A task is something that we identified early on. We knew we would need to do that, okay? Right? For example, Jason can tell us early on what it takes to build a new image, right? He can tell us there's 5 tasks, here's what they are. Lydia can tell us what it takes to do and stuff in her area of expertise. Likewise, Bob's teams can do the same thing. We can lay that out. An action item is a piece of work that came up after the fact. We didn't know that that was going to happen. So that if we see something that's an AI, hey, we didn't know that, we didn't think of that ahead of time. But we know next time that'll be a task, right? Okay, move on, here we go. We're gonna move on down the line. Hopefully we won't see any yellow all the way to the bottom. Here we go. I wish I had some music. There's the planning phase. The actual project starts after the planning phase. Wow, look at all the work we did on the project plan. Image development plan, test plan, support plan, logistics deployment plan, communication plan, training plan, identify the additional team members, leads, on and on. Look at all this work we guys did. Going on down. Okay, the items in red, for you people that might want to use this project management methodology, the red bits are absolutely have to be done. You can't proceed and call yourself a Q2PM project manager unless you do those red bits, all right? If you miss that, you're missing the mark and you're gonna pay for it later. I have. Okay, now we're down into the execution phase. There's the engineering phase. Now we have some milestones here. Smoke testing, look, under UAT testing. Look at all of this work we did under UAT. Remember, Chris? Whew, Chris did all the heavy lifting here. Oh, no, what I missed here was also there's the engineering work that's coming up, but there was a lot of heavy lifting that Chris and John Cole took under their wing to make sure that we really tested this, including solicitation of DPSS to make sure that we identified all of the applications that might be running on Windows 10. That was a great job, Chris. It was this heavy lifting that Chris and his team did up here that made sure that we had a smooth deployment with very few issues at the far end. So, and for the most part, our issues were nominal, I think, right? Scrolling down a little further, all kinds of action items. And now we have the actual UAT situations where we're on sites, the numbers, there's a date, the parentheses, that shows the number of systems you upgraded. Scrolling down, some UAT issues. Now we're down to pilot. There's the pilot testing that occurred. We had to get ready for pilot. There were a lot of items we had to do to get ready. Pilot deployment. Remember, we did pilot in 2 rings. Ring 1 was Kid Street, just across the parking lot, first floor and second floor. And ring 2 was over here, Moreno Valley and Norco. We did that in order to have a diverse set across all 4 divisions with different types of users. Again, thank you, Chris. That was a really well thought out plan to make sure that we weren't just selecting the same types of people and having them test it. Scrolling down a little further, now we're down into main deployment. There we go. Now, before the main deployment began, we encountered 4 separate risks right there, including one of them, unfortunately Cindy didn't make it today, was the threat of Cindy Glenn leaving. And we remediated that by, thank you Mike, and thank you Anita, we remediated that by having Harry Solis assigned, and unfortunately Harry's at a project right now, he couldn't join us. Harry was assigned to that. And then look at all the decisions we made, lots of changes and a lot of issues right on down the line. On and on and on. Now we're going to get down into actual deployment. Here we go. Here's the sites. Each of these is one of the sites that we visited. But remember, a site can have, it's kind of like a hand grenade. It goes down in lots of, that's not a good analogy. Scratch that. So we can have, for example, Harupa on 422 consisted of 4 separate sites that we visited. That was where the field services team, you guys did some heavy lifting figuring this out, right? You were going to arrive at Harupa on 422 and distribute your team to the various sites simultaneously to perform the work with 2 leads, right? And of course we had Craig as well later in the project helping us, and then of course we had Dee, who's not here as well, helping us as well. All throughout, this was very, very difficult logistical work. Thank you, Bob, for allowing your team to really do that great work, and Alex and Iggy for wherever you are. I'll let you can be the proxy Iggy as well. Okay, and Sal, you stepped in as a supervisor as well and helped us out. There were some times there. Thank you. But really, this is where the rubber hit the road, right? When we were out there marching along all the way from back in March 25th. All the way down until 8-1. Cactus was our last site where we visited those. And then we had some review sites. There's some nomenclature in there, and special sites, need to review sites, but we took care of those as well. They're all gray. But it's not gray anymore. Does anybody spot yellow as I do? Oh, what kind of project manager am I? I've still got yellow on the thing, and it's our last meeting. What can this possibly be?
That's the closure phase.
That's right. That's right. That's what we're doing here, right? That's our closure. So I'm going to jump into the presentation real quick. And the first we're going to do, I want to point out that I can't make these gray until they're done. So under closure phase, these are red ones. They must be done. Step 9 is the project closure report. That's the document each of you has in front of you. So I've been working on that document, and hey, it looks like it's done. So guess what I get to do?
Check it out.
Yep. But not just check it off, and I'm executing this particular steps, not necessarily for your benefit, but for the benefit of project managers who want to use this process. The way that you do that is that you click on the item, you open it up, right? You scroll down and make in the note, report complete and delivered to team, okay? And the actual completion date is today. And I get to mark that now as the status as done. Now you'll notice if you're looking closely that that completion date does not match the due date of 9/26/2001. What's up, Kurt? What? 3 months? I'll explain. But first now I'm going to go ahead and click on save. And what do I do next? Does anybody remember?
Turn it to gray.
That's right, turn it to gray. That item is done. Now, by the way, this clunky process that I'm doing right now, I'm changing colors, and I'm making all of you wait while I'm changing colors, that's a thing of the past. Juan and Harry have figured out how to put Microsoft Project on the front end and Power BI on the back end of this thing, the SharePoint infrastructure, or the opposite, yeah. One's waving at me the wrong way. And it's all going to be automated from this point forward. It's going to be a beautiful Power BI interface where the colors change themselves. That's coming, version 2. So the one other item here is the project closure meeting. Hey, that's what this is. I don't get to mark that until 3 o'clock or whatever. Let's jump into it, 2:30. Here's the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, here we go. Any questions at this point? Have a donut. Okay, project closure meeting, project closure report. This PowerPoint presentation corresponds to the document you have in your hand. At the end of this meeting, I brought a black pen. The signatory people at the end, I don't think any of them are in the room. I'm going to ask them to sign it. There you are, yes. So I will give you a pen and you will sign it, and then Gil will sign it. And Anita, the reason it's Gil and not you is that this was a TSB project. Right. Yep. You remember the EAB ones I asked you. Okay, here we go. Content. What are we going to talk about? Really quick. We're going to talk about the overall project summary. 3 phases. Windows 10 DPSS C4. Windows 10 DPSS CWS CMS and coexistent. Windows 10 DPSS proper. It's a mouthful. Okay, next. Windows 10 DPSS project phase summary. I'm going to review what we did in this project. Important dates and milestones. Project deliverables. Outstanding items. Major obstacles encountered. Lessons learned. Things we could have done better. Project documentation. I think one more. Human resources. Don't worry, that's not going to take me 3 hours. I'm going to get through this quick. Okay? Here we go. Oh, and one more. Project closure communication plan. I knew I was going to forget something. Okay. Overall project summary. This project occurred over 3 years in 3 phases. Basically, 2016 to 2017 was the year of C4. Okay? In that year, I was the project manager. Chris Rodriguez was the lead project manager for the whole thing. Cindy Glenn and I were the 2 project managers actually running the project at that time. I took point on this one. This one was mine. This is where we updated. Why are we 3 separate phases? 3 networks, right? They have 3 networks. This was on the C4 network. So this was our first time. You're going to see a screenshot of the project with each run. It gets better every iteration because we learned a lot from every one. This is a very clunky and simple one. We have basically 4 phases. Planning phase, execution phase, testing phase, deployment phase. No closure phase. That's today. That's why there's no closure phase there. We were able to deliver everything per schedule. Got that one out. C4 network was in the bag. And for the most part, it's been quiet ever since. That also included, I might add, the call center, which was a really tricky one, right? So anytime you're dealing with a call center or a high availability site like that, and guys, Brandon and George, thank you so much. You guys really walked them through that call center. I mean, those were some tricky. Thank you. I took time out to go over. That was one of the sites I wanted to just go and watch, because if you don't have enough people on the phones to answer the phones because someone's doing an upgrade, then you're going to have somebody calling Jim Smith and Dave Rogers real quick complaining, right? And that didn't happen. Thank you. Okay, so fast forward, and this is where I'm going to stand in for Cindy. My friend and project manager, Cindy Glenn, who is now retired. This was her project. She chose a different type of timeline. She just chose to show you her milestones along the way. Basically, it's the same type of thing. Cindy had a harder job, even though there were a lot less. Oh, I forgot to tell you how many. For the C4 phase of the project, we upgraded 3,245 workstations on that phase. That was the biggest one of the 3. This was probably the hardest. This was Cindy's. I should say only. We upgraded 1,085 workstations on this project, but the tricky part was that this was kind of like trying to water ski and eat a bowl of ramen at the same time, okay? You guys were able to not only upgrade the workstations, but swap them off of the CWS CMS network onto the DPSS network. That project alone, just doing that, was a crown jewel that had been sought after for quite a while. And you guys went out and said, well, hey, as long as we're out here doing the upgrades, why can't we just swap it out? It's not as easy as all that, right? So that was kudos to you for doing that. Again, completed on time, per specification, happy customer. And one less network to worry about, right? Now I'm forgetting to mention some things. I won't in the interest of time, but for example, there are things like dealing with these other state network vendors are very, very complicated things. And there's people like Linda Avila, what's her name? Avila. She has expertise in knowing how to deal with C4, right? That she taught us, and I wish she was here so I could thank her personally. I need to take her to lunch. Because if you don't get everything right guys, if you don't get everything right with a C4 change order, forget about it, right?
Nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening. And they're not going to tell you, right?
They're not gonna tell you.
Yep. Okay, this is the remainder of the presentation will be about this one. The reason I chose not to go into all the gory details for those other two projects was because they happened 2 years prior. They're good, they're stable, and it's what you're going to see now basically is just apply that to the last two projects and it's the same thing, okay? This is the third and final phase, the one we all just finished. Now you'll see that we learned a lot in 3 iterations. This was from 2018 to 2019. This was the DPSS proper network. What that means is this is the network that all of the DPSS offices connect into for their own proprietary business. We upgraded 1,182 systems, not as big as C4, but it was a complicated gig. Okay, now what you can see now is by this point we knew what we were doing better than we did the first and the second time. We knew, for example, how all the pieces of the puzzle should fit together, and you can see that it tells a very detailed story. And what you'll see here is that we have a planning phase. We have an engineering phase where basically Jason and Lyle and Gary's team and Derek, basically they knew what they had to build. So they would actually be able to begin building the Windows 10 DPSS image while we were planning it out because they knew what their deliverable was. And they delivered that just before we finished our planning stage. And then we began the testing phase. Now look at this. That's a long test phase. It's 6 months of test that's actually more than 6 months of testing, right? Now that may seem like a long time, but Gartner analyst firm, research analyst firm Gartner recommended it to us. They said for an organization of our size and complexity, 6 months minimum are what you need to make sure you don't have any problems. And it seems to have borne fruit because we haven't had any problems. Then we had the deployment phase, main deployment, and then laptop refresh. Okay, that's the little cherry on the top that I'll talk about in just a second. And then the closure phase, here's where I have to hide my face in shame. What are you talking about? 9.6 to 12.5 closure curve? What are you talking about? I'll explain that in just a minute. Okay, so that's the project. Here we go. Windows 10 DPSS project phase summary. Important dates and milestones. If something's in black, that means it's parity. If it's red, that means it was behind. If it's green, that means we exceeded the schedule. Estimated deployment completion date. This is for main deployment, not laptops. You guys may remember laptops refresh were out of scope, right? We added that into the project. So that's what kind of makes the end of the project look a little strange. But you'll see that the projected completion date was 7/31/2019. And we actually completed the project on 7/18/2019, 13 days ahead of schedule. Thank you all for doing that. That was really a nice win. Bob, your team really, up front, you guys worked on your algorithms, your plan, you figured out, you timed everything. And that timing really bore fruit. It showed that it really did take, showed us how much time we needed. Thank you. Now, here are the major milestones. These are the milestones from the phase project charter, the promises we made at the start of the project. Remember, there's that charter that we wrote up at the beginning, and we said, these are the things that we're going to deliver. Here are the dates from that. Project start, 7/4/2018. Yep, that's the day we started. Hey, that's Independence Day. Planning phase complete. 8/10/2018. It took a little longer. 10/22/18. As a project manager, I was a little off the mark. It took me longer than I thought. But don't worry, it's kind of like a racehorse falling behind a little bit. You will catch back up. Engineering phase complete, 9/14/2018, 9/21/2018. So real close to the expected date. UAT testing complete, 11/8/9/2018 was the projected date. We finished on time. Thank you, Chris. Pilot testing complete, 3/15/2019. We finished on 3/15/2019. Again, thank you, Chris. Main deployment complete, 7/18/2019 was our scheduled date. Hey, we did it, 7/18/2019. Good. So what you may wonder, what is the difference between this and this? The 7/31 would be for the final, originally for the closure phase, right? If I had had the closure phase, if we hadn't done the refresh, I would have had the closure phase right after the deployment was complete. But I was a little bit wrong in thinking I could do that in 2 weeks. Okay, next, closure phase complete, 7/31. You can see that's the 31 right there. Actual. 10. Does it say really the 5th, or is it the 6th? What? What kind of project manager am I? So, okay, so there's reasons. Okay, project complete, 7/31/2019, 12/5/2019. Okay, but the good news is, if you look at this, it looks like we were late. No, our main deployment was spot on. We kept our promise, right? The thing that was different was, along the way, we decided we were going to have a refresh as well. And so everybody agreed. It wasn't that we agreed to it between assets and DPSS and RCIT. We said, yep, let's do this. Let's add this to the project. And that's what take a little longer. So it was a good thing because we were able to knock that out as well. Completion of DPSS laptop refresh project. Originally it was projected to be 10/31. This was out of scope, but it was 9/4. So we added that at the end. Okay. I mentioned the project charter, which is the contract that we have for every project. These are all the things that we promised in that contract. This is the most important part of this meeting. Okay, the next 2 slides are the most important part. If this was a wedding ceremony, I would say, this is the time to object. If you see something that you don't agree with, okay? Here's what we promised when we started this project. We promised, 1, a hardware count. What that means is, we would identify all remaining DPSS hardware requiring Windows 10 upgrade. Yes, we completed that goal. I'm going to have a pause for a moment for anyone who wants to object. If you don't object, then I'll move on. Okay. The next promised item was hardware compatibility. Identify Windows 10 incompatible DPSS hardware that needs to be refreshed. Yes, we completed that as well. And one of the benefits of having this closure phase, actually, maybe I should think of that as a best practice. Maybe the closure meeting should be 3 or 4 or 5 months after the fact, so we have time to see if anything pops up in the meantime.
Okay, then you're early.
Then I'm early. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, I think we completed that. I'll go a little faster. Next, software identification. Identify all DPSS software required to run on Windows 10. Yes, we did that, and we did that by soliciting everybody and everybody. Next, software compatibility. Assess identified software compatibility with Windows 10. That was Jason's team and Jason and Associates. And yes, we did that as well. And also your team, Chris, because we did, in fact, you want to tell us about how we had to remediate some applications?
Yeah, well, some of the applications were really old. One of the good things is during the time that this project was going on, we were rewriting legacy apps. So when we came to this portion of the project, the reason why the UAT and the pilot were like the same day starting was because by that time we didn't have a constraint of JavaScript having to remain at a certain level, 7.71 to be exact. We could now allow that to be taken out of the GPO. And then a lot of the applications were now no longer old VB code. They are now new web applications. So they're gonna run perfectly fine with the latest OS, Windows 10. We even said, we've tested all these apps, there isn't anything else, we've tested them C4, we've tested them CFS, they're tested on Windows 10, there isn't any reason that we can see that they won't run on DPSS machines on Windows 10. So let's sped that all up.
And how's it been going?
Great.
Applications are
Very,
running?
very, so maybe one or two small little things, but taken care of right away.
Thank you. Moving along. Software remediation. Remediate or replace Windows 10 incompatible software. What he said. Yes. Develop Windows 10 image. Develop a Windows 10 image for use with this project. That was Jason and team? Yes. Okay, this is the second slide. So we promised 11 items. Number 7 was certify the Windows 10 image. Certify via smoke, UA, and it should be UAT, and pilot testing against all identified software. You remember for a while there, we had it up at the 5th floor up there, we had all those little workstations, Windows 10 workstation. I think there's still one somewhere. Yeah, I think we can probably take that one down.
Do a ticket.
Yeah, and that's what that was for. So we would have the applications, and we brought people in to test. Deliver, yes. Deliver Win 10 training. Train all remaining DPSS personnel on Windows 10. I wish that Jackie Brown was here, not from the movie, the real Jackie Brown from staff development. She has since moved on to another job, but Jackie did a great job of developing a training program, and she was arm in arm with the field services team out at the sites, training training our personnel. And yes, and finally, deploy Windows 10. Deploy Windows 10 to all remaining identified workstations requiring upgrade. Field services team, I want to just thank you again. That was incredible. That was really the heavy lifting of this project in particular. Windows 10 supporting services, identify and ensure functionality of required ancillary services, such as VMware. We needed special subject matter experts throughout the organization to identify what those were, and I'm thinking Gary Kessler and his team as well for helping us with that. And yes, and then Windows 10 support. I used to be in support, and I'm sorry that I made you the last slide. Sometimes I felt that was the case, but nothing is maintained without a good support group. And you brought up the project and maintained it, because once we deployed the item, we had to have somebody there to make sure that they could answer calls. So Lydia and your team, and Bob, now that you're head of that as well. So thank you very much and all of that, and everybody that we had, various people from your group as part of the project. Every one of them was a stellar performer, coming to our meetings and letting us know where they were getting the feedback from the desk. And I'm not having a chance to really compliment and thank our field services team as well. I'm going to just drop out of the slide. Now, I may mess up my slideshow for a second, but because it's not specifically called out there, we do have Josh and Claudia on the line. And Josh and Claudia, I can't thank you enough for being a part of this project and for being our partners in this. It's tricky working between agencies sometimes. We have different workflows and different expectations, different reporting structures, and we had our ups and downs just as all of these would, but I think that in the end we really did come together as a group and work in a consolidated way. And I just want to thank you, and at the risk of sounding hokey, can we give Josh and Claudia and the assets thank you for that.
Thank you, Kurt. We also did enjoy learning a lot from you guys and working with everyone. I know we had a lot of changes and needs and stuff, but we made it work and came together, and we did truly enjoy learning from all of you.
Thank you so much, Claudia. And please extend our thanks to Corey and Marcus as well. Please.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay, we don't have that much time, believe it or not. So here we go. Project deliverables. These are out of scope items. So early in the project, we identified what was within scope, but it's nice to identify what's out of scope. Out of scope has a particular meaning, okay, in project management. Making coffee at Starbucks is out of scope for the Windows 10 project, right? Out of scope as it relates to this is things that happen that the project may be related to in some way or may require to get done for us to succeed. So it's stuff that we're not doing but needs to get done, right? So that's what out of scope means. In this case, one was the hardware refresh, okay? This is the thing that we added at the end, right? No hardware refresh was planned. There were over 500 laptops that were basically the laptops weren't around, right? So that we couldn't, it made sense that we could refresh the hardware because we were going to go out there, but there were no laptops on hand. Remember the problems we had with Dell, right? Well, eventually the laptops, Bob still has nightmares? Yeah? Yeah, and his wife says that at night he's saying, switch to HP, switch to HP. So finally, the good news is finally we got the hardware. Dell came through, we got the hardware, and so between assets and RCIT we decided, and DPSS, let's go for it. Let's take those machines out there. And that's where we plugged in that last bit at the end. At the risk of messing up my slideshow again, that's, remember this piece right here on the screen? That's what this is. And what this gap right there is, that's the gap where we were waiting to get the hardware in play. Dell, I think they put the hardware in a truck and sent them to Las Vegas or something. Was that it? Or I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, eventually we got the hardware. We got them in the warehouse. Claudia and Josh, thank you for getting that process down. We got them re-imaged. We got the process down, and then we got the band back together. And you guys headed back out and you refresh those systems. So that's what took us beyond the normal deployment phase complete out to this laptop phase complete and pushed everything back by a little bit. But if you're going to push something back because you're doing good work that makes the world a better place, then I don't call that a slip. I call that a better world. All right. Yes, we completed that. And DPSS tablets upgrade. DPSS tablet. I'm surprised. I thought this was going to come up as a problem later. It really didn't. Did you guys in the field ever get people walking up to you with their laptops saying, their tablets saying,
Take it back, please?
yeah, to take it back, please.
That's what we got, is take it back.
Take it back.
I don't want it anymore.
Okay. So the laptops were out of scope, so it was never an issue, right? So the only reason we listed that as an out of scope item was in case it came up, hey, what about the tablets? Hey, I wanted to show, we thought about them and we decided they're out of scope, right? That was a decision. Okay, so what's left to do? And we have a little bit of time here left. What's left to do in terms of activities, risks, and issues in communications? Well, no, not much. We don't have any activities left. All the risks have been addressed. All the issues have been addressed. We just have a couple of emails that I need to send out on Monday. Major obstacles encountered. So looking back, and I went out and I reached out to some of you and went and sat with you and we brainstormed things that we learned along the way. What were the major obstacles that we encountered in this project? One of them was a domain controller issue, right, Jason? The problem was that we would get out in the field and then the domain controller in the field for some reason, can you explain it, Jason?
I'm actually trying to remember, it's been a while on that one. I have to go back now and take it.
We weren't able to image because the domain controller, is that right? Am I speaking right,
Yeah,
Brandon?
it was something.
You have to restart the, they took the
Yeah, and
it was usually Derek that did that for us, by the way.
Oh, right, it was Derek, yeah, that's right. But eventually, you guys resolved that, and that problem went away. But it did hobble the team a little bit because they would get out and they couldn't really deploy until that got fixed. But Derek had that turnaround was like 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, you did that.
The next problem we had, or not problem, it was not even an obstacle. It was just a fact, a reality that we could do this, was the hardware refresh. And we just simply had to, we saw that we had the machines in-house. Bob knew he was going to have to get them in the field. He's got a team very capable and willing, and Assets was willing to let us go. Let's go. And we did. The last one was the Dell, this is an interesting one, the Dell 7440 swollen batteries. Remember that one? Right? Right there at the end of the project where people are starting to turn in machines that have batteries that are swollen up like a bruised ankle, right? So it was eventually, thank you Assets for basically going out and relieving the field of those systems, which could have been a potential security issue, or safety issue. Okay, what did we learn along the way? We learned a couple of things. One, always include staff development and pilot trials, right? Because they care about documenting this stuff and they give great feedback, right? So that was my bad for not including them in the pilot, right? Because we did the pilot at Kidd Street and at the two other streets, but no staff development. My bad. I learned. Second lesson learned was invite a member of the DPSS. This is for you, Claudia and Josh. Invite a member of the DPSS Assets team to project site coordinator meetings. I can't believe that it took me 3 years to figure that out. I don't know why I didn't have you at every one of those meetings, Josh. It would have been great. You would have known what we were saying in the meetings. You would have kept us honest, and we would have all been in agreement. Next time. Next, consult Gartner on important questions like pilot duration. This is my own personal thing, I think Bart Gartner gave us some great insight based on real data. Another one, explore options to allow the field services team more flexibility with their schedule. What this basically means, this is a kind of a lesson learned not from this project, but from the mainline RCIT Windows 10 project, where they're giving more of just a date for a site, right? And that gives them the flexibility to move in and out. Now, DPSS is a special customer in some ways because we have a lot of social workers that are out in the field. We have to lock them down, right? We call those our priority users. But if you don't have a lot of priority users on a site, hey, maybe we can be more flexible and not say that James Smith is going to be upgraded at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, and just simply say, we're going to visit you before the end of the month. That's worked out. I mean, Dee tells me that's working out.
Yeah, that's been looking at on the countywide.
Yeah.
Just don't make them proud.
Just don't make them priorities. Things we could have done better. Now, this is from the C4 project, so it's not part of DPSS, but I thought it was so important I wanted to include it. Clearer understanding of the C4 change order process. I mentioned this before. That's a very particular way of doing things. And I didn't understand that, and it bit me 3 times before I figured it out. That it's like a special handshake, right? You have to know that you can't get in the clubhouse.
And it's not just a handshake, and then there's a word.
And a word,
Yeah.
and a bump,
And a ring.
and a ring.
This week, you know, like-
That's right.
Yeah.
Another thing we could have done better, namely me, is better organization of the project team site. I realized the project team site was a little cluttered. Witness Juan Ugarte, who is joining us as a project manager. Juan's specialty is user interfaces. He's an application developer who can make beautiful user interfaces that make sense to users. He's going to take the sites that we have and make them a lot more user friendly. Next is team updates of information on project team site. Team updates of information on project team site. Oh, I think Cindy did that on her face of the project. She had a little banner at the top that provided updates. I think all of our sites should have that. Just a few more. Better understanding of software licensing. I did not understand the software licensing process for Windows 10 and all of those other applications, those third-party applications. And then I went downstairs to the first floor, or whichever floor, and I was talking to the licensing folks, and my eyes went like that, and I realized that I needed to be educated. And so if I go into a project like this in the future, I'm going to get my hand around licensing. Better use of division site coordinators. We had 4 levels with this project. We had our executives at the top, we had our division coordinators that were people responsible for each of the divisions, and then we had our site coordinators, men and women at each site that helped facilitate with us, and then we had the actual field services team that was actually doing all the work. Initially I included the division coordinators, but you know what happened was, I learned, and the reason the division coordinators were there, they were there as a point of escalation in case I came across a problem site and I needed someone in a managerial position to turn to. We really didn't have any problem sites, right? I mean, the site, and they're not here I wish they were here. Our site coordinators, for the most part, were really good people. I mean, some of those maps they created for their sites included like an X marks the spot of the treasure, and they were amazing. And so what I would do is either make sure I find a better use for the division coordinators or not use them at all. And then finally, onto, and I think just 2 slides left, project documentation. So this project is all going to be wrapped up in a bow in just a second, and it's going to go all into our SharePoint site forever and ever. And the following documents will be there for anyone who comes along and wants to upgrade to Windows 10 or Windows something later. 1, there will be a project charter. That's the contract. There will be a pilot plan. There will be a deployment plan. There will be a schedule. Those 3 documents there are going to be key for anybody that has to reinvent this wheel. Execution will include a team roster, log, which has all the gory details about everything we did, including issues, risks, changes, and decisions. All of our meeting notes and this closure report are about to be put on Monday. I'm going to put them into this system close it all up really nice, send out my last 2 email, and then put this thing to bed. So Bob, Mike, Alex, Sal, I'm looking at Chris, I'm looking at all the supervisors and managers. So if this type of thing comes up again, please know it's out there. Oh, Lydia, if this kind of thing comes up again and say, oh, hey, isn't there a site? Didn't we do this before? Isn't all that documentation sitting there? It's there. I think this might be second to last slide. Human resources. All project team resources are now released from the project. Go forth and prosper. You're done. And last 2 thing, project closure communication plan. This is for me. I have 2 emails that I need to send out. I need to send out to the project sponsors a final deployment site complete message. I'm going to send it on email on Monday. I have to do that. Good project manager finishes his or her last action item assigned to him or herself. Project team, all of you will be getting an email indicating that the project has been successfully completed and closed, stating our lessons learned, what we could have done better, and the status of all project assets. That means human and system assets. Project team meeting, that's basically this meeting. I'm communicating that here and now. And the dispatch date is actually should have been today and me. Okay? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of Windows 10.
One more thanks to Kurt, because he did a wonderful job, and all the project managers that were part of it really stepped up. I don't think it could have been run any better. So,
Agreed.
one thanks to
Thank you very much. All right, well, I see we've almost run out of donuts, so everybody dive in if you want to get one. And those that joined us online, thank you so much for coming. We'll see you at the next project.
Do you want
Thank you,
me to send
Kurt.
this one or anyone?
Oh, yeah, that one, that's yours. Yep. Take care.